What's up, everyone? This is the Autistic Scyther here, and when it comes down to it, you already know, I love Fire Emblem, but as much as I love Fire Emblem, I love Pokemon. Ever since I got Generation 1 when I was around 8 or 9 years old. So that being said, kinda makes me wonder what my favorite Pokemon type is. Well, that's what we're gonna find out with this countdown. And it's gonna be a doozy. So in this case, it's time to count down my top 10 favorite Pokemon types. There we go. And in this case, we're taking a look at my 10 favorite Pokemon types. Granted, in this case, well, I'm not gonna mention all my favorite Pokemon of that type. At least there will be some mentions of some of my favorites, so with that, let's get into this countdown. Starting off first at number 10, we have Steel. Honestly, when it comes down to it, the Steel type is... I didn't really get into it back when I was back when I played through Generation 2. And since it introduced around that time, it took me a while to realize how good Steel types are. And that's really saying a lot even now, considering I'm doing a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Sword using only Steel types. So, yeah, really says a lot. But that being said, Steel types are kind of the defensive wall that we all basically needed. And even with that, considering how many Steel-type Pokemon, how many resistances Steel-type Pokemon have, and how solid they are in terms of attack power or defensive power, there's a lot to it that meets the eye. So, I'm willing to essentially get into Steel types just because of how they are, and even as such, I've had a fair amount of Steel-type Pokemon I've liked. Whether it's the Pawniard line, due to being based on chess pieces, to the absolute juggernauts that are Steelix or Metagross. And honestly, if Scizzor's going to be one of them, yeah, you know it's gotta be one of them because... Come on, my channel name is the Autistic Scyther. Anything involving Scyther might be something I enjoy. However, if I had to choose my absolute favorite, it has to be Lucario. I mean, it's an aura sensing Egyptian wolf that mixed with an Egyptian boxer. It's obviously gonna be cool, and it's been cool ever since I saw the 8th movie. Yeah, I know I'm basic. I'm aware. But I just like it. Moving on next at number 9, we have Fighting. And honestly, sometimes when it comes down to it, sometimes a good offense is an even stronger defense. But more often than not, sometimes you just want to hit things, and naturally I tend to like a lot of fighting types because of it. Which, when it comes down to it, let's just be real. Fighting types always are your standard physical juggernauts. And I know a lot of people tend to hate fighting types due to them being humanoid, but honestly, there are a lot of fighting types that have an interesting effort. I mean, especially in terms of inspirations. I mean, and some of my favorites have that notable inspirations. I mean, Hitmontop's based on a Capoeirista, which took me a while to realize it, because when I was a kid, I thought Hitmontop was a Beyblade. or something like that. Breloom looks pretty awesome, even due to being a mushroom kangaroo raptor wearing a tam o' shanter. And you already know about the aforementioned Lucario. And heck, even Graplocked and the Timberline have some interesting inspirations. However, you want to know my favorite? It's Infernape. I mean, come on. It's a Pokemon based on Sun Wukong, aka Goku from Dragon Ball. I mean, it's gotta be popular. And it's gotta be something I like. I mean, heck, even Emboar looks pretty sick, due to being based on Zubaji. That being said, Mega Emboar having a fire spear? I don't know what the heck they were going with. I mean, it has a fire beard! Just, why? Right. Moving on next at number 8, we have Psychic. Honestly, as much as the fighting types focus on more raw physical power, sometimes you need a good amount of mental capacity to basically get through any obstacle you need to go through. And naturally, more often than not, if I do play through do a Nuzlocke, like a standard Nuzlocke, I try to make sure I have a Psychic type at least once. Because honestly, the Psychic types are just so versatile and are usable in any aspect that kind of makes it almost, dare I say, perfect to say the least. I mean, heck, most of my recent playthroughs, have had at least a Psychic type at some point. And that's saying a lot considering how many notable Psychic types I've used thus far. I mean, you have Alakazam, which is basically just a Psychic juggernaut. You have Alolan Raichu, which is basically an electrical surfer that surfs on psychic power. You have Bronzong, which is basically a huge bronze bell. Gothitelle, whose cry sounds like it's basically something coming out of a scary movie. Gallade, which is a steadfast knight. And honestly, if I had to choose it, one of my favorite Pokemon of the Psychic type has gotta be Delphox. Yeah, I know. Honestly, as much as Delphox has been getting a lot of people basically coming out of the woodworks and saying how good it is, or how amazing it is, especially in terms of its Mega, I honestly can't forget how a lot of people hated Delphox back when it was released in Generation 6. Honestly, I just looked at it and was like, really? It's not that bad. I mean, sure, Delphox does look like it has, like, hair coming out of its ears, but it's basically a fox wizard. I mean, it looks pretty sick to say the least. And plus, more often than not, whenever I play through a Kalos game, I will tend to make use of Fennekin over Chespin and Froakie as my starter. As much as I like Chespin, to say the least, but yeah, that really does say a lot. Plus, I gotta point out Braixen is a pretty solid Pokemon as well, namely due to how Serena's Braixen was in the anime, basically just being a font of sass, and how Breakson in Pokken Tournament is just a full-on tsundere. Plus, yeah, she's also based on Amy Sorrell from Soul Calibur, so there's that. Really says a lot. Moving on next at number 7, we have Fairy. Speaking of Generation 6, when the Fairy type was introduced, I was actually interested in seeing what it was all about. And naturally, as soon as I saw the Fairy type, my mind went to girly pink sparkle magic. And now, I can honestly say I was wrong. Because naturally, the Fairy type just oozes characteristic. Especially in terms of battle style. Because while most of them do seem feminine, a lot of them just show how different aspects of the Fae there are. And honestly, I'm impressed that even 9 generations in, I'm impressed at how much the Fairy type has come across. And sure, we have Pokemon like Florges and Dedenne, but the fact that we add in like favorites like Mawile, Grimmsnarl, and even the gremlin that is Tinkaton really says a lot. However, my favorite is Gardevoir. And no, not in that way. Get your mind out of the gutters. Get your minds out of the gutter. I like Gardevoir because, honestly, it's mostly one of the few Pokemon that you could easily pick up, and it stays with you till the end of till the champion battle. And I've used Gardevoir more than I can count, and it served me very well in terms of battle. Plus, again, I've seen so many Aerolink comics, I actually like it. And even more. That's all I gotta say. Also, the Poketoons Gardevoir short is just amazing, especially with that smile at the end. It's just heartwarming and adorable. Moving on next at number 6, we have the Ground type. Yup. Honestly, you wouldn't think most of the original, when it comes to the original types that came in with Generation 1, honestly, the Ground type is also a surprising type that I was very shocked I liked. I mean, naturally, I'm not a big fan of like physical powerhouses outside fighting type, but even with that, the Ground type has actually had some more interesting power that I've found myself wanting to at least pick up a Ground type at least once and utilize it. Like all through to shake things up, no pun intended. And naturally, it's come up with some the Ground type has, to the point that the Ground type more often than not, again, like the Psychic type, is a type that I will normally add to my team just for the sheer fact of how useful it is in battle. And this includes the likes of Pokemon like Golem, both forms of Stunfisk, Whiscash, Camerupt, Marowak, Crocodile, Flygon, and of course, my favorite of the Ground types, Donphan. Yeah. Little thing about me, the elephant is one of my favorite animals. Outside penguins, for that matter. But I loved elephants. But ever since I saw when it comes down to it, elephants are my favorites. And heck, in Pokemon the first movie, when I saw Ash's Squirtle facing off against that guy's Don fan, I was hooked because seeing an elephant that could turn itself into a tire and roll around, I was blown away. And honestly, the fact that in Gen 9 we see two new forms of it, yes, Don fans are eating good. That's all I gotta say. This will be continued in part 2.